Då har vi sista delen då, en presentation av Xavier Aubry som kommer presentera Mobi Cloud-projektet och berätta lite om sina erfarenheter av att göra ett sånt här projekt. Vi ska se. Vill du ha en sån här? Eller vill du... Så.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I will do this in English, but quite slowly, so hopefully you can understand even with my strong French accent. I'm the CEO of a company here in Sweden, and we just won one of this CIP project funding, which we are in fact coordinating, so we are the lead company in this. And my idea today is to share my experience of the application process, but also to give you some useful tips on how to write a great proposal. Because as you probably know, these things have become very, very competitive now. So a little bit about the background of this presentation. I'm giving you the feedback of the entrepreneur. I mean, I'm like you, I wrote a proposal, I wasn't sure if it would succeed. I saw a lot of challenges. I read a lot of EU documentation. It's really not always easy to understand everything. And hopefully, fortunately, you have people from Vinnova that are very good advisors for this. So I highly recommend you to, if you have any worries or questions, to ask them. They spend a lot of time helping people like us. So currently, I'm coordinating this project. I'm the project manager for my company. But I'm also involved in writing other proposals for other companies. So I'm sort of helping them to write good proposals. And the fields I typically work is ICT or transportation or biotech or medical technology. So in fact, if you are planning to apply to a call like CIP, in particular topic 1.1 and 1.2, please contact me for two reasons. One is my company might be interested in joining your consortium if you are looking for a partner in Sweden. But also, it's very good in a proposal to explain about other projects in related space. So we have a project related to mobile cloud computing. And if you are filing for the topic 1.1, it's about cloud computing. So the reviewer usually will be very happy if you mention another project which has already been funded, which you are planning to work with. Creating some synergies is very important for the Commission because they want the money that they spend to be reused and they want the results to be reused. And in fact, probably in our project, you may find useful foundations for your own project if it's aligned with your objectives. So do not hesitate to contact me or just send an email to that address. The Mobi Cloud project, we started to work on it about a year ago, a bit late because we really found about this call in March, and that was too late. I think it's really great that you have this presentation today because this is when you should start building your consortium. Time will run very fast, and building a good consortium takes a lot of time. We were lucky because we already had a bunch of partners we could have in our consortium, so it was quite fast to build a consortium. But we came a little late. For example, we missed the pre-proposal check, which I really recommend you to do because it's a great way to get feedback from the Commission. But we were lucky because they were not very formal, and we asked them a phone call to give us some advice. And in fact, the officer agreed to give us some advice despite the fact that we had missed the deadline. So I'm not saying you should miss the deadline, but what I'm saying is sometimes you will find some very helpful person at the Commission. It's not always the case. They are sometimes very formal, so it's better to follow the procedure, of course. But do not hesitate to request time on the phone with them. Not only a written evaluation, which is usually quite short, but interact with them on the phone. It's a great way to understand several things. For example, if they think the call is going to be very competitive, because they know how many people are contacting them, so they will give you an idea of the competition level on the call. And they will also give you a little bit more details of what they would do on an email. So it's very valuable. Our consortium is 4 countries because we are running a pilot type B, so it's a requirement to have companies from 4 different EU countries. And it's a total budget of 4.4 million euros, out of which we are getting half from the Commission. Now, this is an interesting fact in itself because my company is not very big. We are 25 people in Sweden, and our turnover is about 2.5 million euro. And we are the coordinator of this project, so we're receiving the entire amount, 2.2 million euro, and then we are distributing it to the consortium. And that means that you can actually run as a coordinator a fairly large project. The only requirement is that, of course, you have a solid foundation and you're not losing money, because otherwise the Commission would be worried that you would not be able to run the project. But it's possible to be ambitious. Don't limit yourself. And you can be the coordinator of this kind of projects if you think it's what you should be doing. But of course, it will increase the reporting requirements, and that has a cost because you're not getting paid 100% for this cost, unfortunately, compared to other frameworks like FP7. So what do we do at MobiCloud? For those of you who are interested, we focus on mobile cloud technologies for business. For example, this poor train conductor in France is trying to find out when he's going to drive his train, but he doesn't know because he doesn't have any mobile device with the right application. But the passenger, he actually has an iPhone and he can tell him. Obviously, that's not very good. It should be the opposite. And often we found that mobile cloud technology are more deployed with us, the consumers, than with the workers. And it's very frustrating if you go to a place where you're supposed to interact with someone who knows his job, but doesn't have the same technology as you have. So what we're trying to do with mobile cloud technology for business is making sure that those people have the latest smartphones with cloud application to help them do their jobs. This is actually being deployed right now with Tågkompaniet in Sweden as part of the MobiCloud project. So you will see people in Tågkompaniet, X-Tåget, for example, which will be using that technology on their smartphones. We're also trying to make people more efficient, really do all their jobs from their mobile device. That sounds obvious, but there's a lot of technology that has to be built to enable that in a good way. The interesting thing here is that we align this with our own roadmap. So remember, CIP only fund 50% of your costs with an overhead of 30%. So you will never get all of your money from the European Commission. Now, of course, you can co-fund this with customer money. And that's what we're doing. Tågkompaniet is paying part of the deployment and the European Commission is paying some of it. So in the end, we don't have to put a lot of money up front. And it's nice for the customer because they pay less than if they had to pay the whole deployment, which they probably wouldn't have bought. So you can use that co-financing system and you're allowed to receive commercial money up to 50%. Now, as long as you don't go over 100%, you're allowed to co-fund with not your own money. So we are doing this, and it's very important for the project to actually have real users. So if you think about this project, what we did is we have a platform, which is already a commercial product, and we use the funding from the European Commission to deploy that product with specific customers. So that's actually one of the big differences between CIP and FP7. CIP is a deployment framework. You can use it for projects which are really, taking a product, deploying it in certain situations. You do not have to do the type of R&D work that are required in FP7, where it's very R&D intensive. You're not supposed to build any product. You're supposed to do some research and at best build a prototype. Here, we actually are assembling different products together to build a pilot. And that pilot can be a commercial pilot. It can be actually also charged to the customer partly, as long as we don't go over 100% of our costs. These are the scenarios we're working on in different countries. In Sweden, it's the rail scenario with Tågkompaniet. In Karlsruhe, in Germany, it will be a city transit operator, which has a tramway and buses. In UK, it will be a construction scenario for site engineers, people that build very large construction sites. And in Netherlands, it will be interim workers like cleaners. And all those people will be connected to the MobiCloud platform. And of course, we try to do a lot of publicity around that. In fact, if you type MobiCloud today, we just released our official launch press release for this, and we're using the European Commission to attract more attention about this. So this is also one of the great benefits of this project. If you look at how CIP compares, as I was mentioning, it's really more focusing on actionable research, on product. And I think this is really great for those of you who already have a product and you're not planning to do a lot of R&D, but you really want to use that product and to deploy it with partners or customers. It will be then merged into FP7, as Johan mentioned. So right now it's the last call where it is really in that side, and then later on it will be FP7. But again, it will be very focused on the end result, on the product. That you already know. I think the only important message here is that this call has a high emphasis on SME, obviously, which is great when you're an SME. It doesn't mean that they should only be SME in the consortium, but I think a good consortium has to have a good balance of SME, large companies, in particular end users, and of course some research if needed. The eligibility requirements are sort of similar to FP7, as Johan mentioned, but just be careful and talk to Johan when you're building a consortium, because there are special rules that may be different. For example, Switzerland is not part of a CIP, but they are part of FP7. So we had to drop one of our partners early on because we didn't know about that. So we told them, please come into consortium, and then they had to leave. That was not very nice for them. So it's better to know from the beginning. And of course, depending on the call topic, you have maximum financing that normally is mentioned. And it's kind of interesting to know what is the funding, and especially when you talk to the project officer, the EC officer, because you can also adapt the strategy. For example, we knew that the funding for our topic was 5 million euro, and probably they would fund 2 projects, which is why we didn't want to go over 2.5, because the last thing you want is to have a large project at 3 million euro, and then the European Commission is thinking, I really like this project at 3 million euro, but I could fund 2 projects at 2.5 instead with the money. So let me just take the other 2. I'm not saying that's what they do, because normally they have to use your ranking to give you the money, but it's really good to know how you fit within the overall budget and to adapt your budget to this type of requirements. So there's a little bit of strategy here. My recommendation on building the Dream Consortium. This is the most important task for you right now as you're starting into your project. And you probably already have a lot of ideas of who you should build in. Of course, there are obligations. If you do a pilot B project, you need 4 different countries. That's how it is. You also need to have a good balance, and I would say that because of the nature of CIP, it's really about SME and users, large companies, because they want to see the product running in production somewhere as a pilot. It's difficult to find good partners, and there's lots of ways to do that. For example, in the AAL framework, they actually have a partner search mechanism. I don't think there's no specific partner search tool for CIP, but there are a lot of tools within FP7 which you can use. There are LinkedIn groups that you can join as well, where there's a lot of information being exchanged. So I really recommend to do this. And I would, when you do your consortium, I would really apply the same business strategy as if you were hunting for a partner. You know, qualify the company. You know, do they have the budget to co-fund this project? Do they have the authority? Am I talking to the right person in the company? Do they really have the need for this type of technology? And are we aligned with their timelines? If you don't have these 4 things, what we call the band qualification, they might just decide not to join at the last minute. And that's the worst thing that can happen. Imagine you have 4 partners from 4 countries, and then suddenly 1 drops, and you're not eligible anymore at the last minute. So in that case, I really recommend that you try to get them to sign a letter of intent. It's not really binding, but at least it shows that the CEO of the company that you're talking to has said, yes, we're very interested in that project, yes, we will commit some time. It doesn't take a lot of time for them to file it. It's just 1 page, essentially, but it's really important. The proposal, that's the most difficult thing of the whole process because, well, the budget and funding depends on this. If you don't write a great proposal, you will not rank high enough and you will get 0 funding. So it's really black or white. You don't get in the middle. You have to be on the top and then you get funding. If you are anywhere else than the top, you won't get funding. That means that you cannot decide that you are going to focus on some of your strengths and try to hide some of the weaknesses of your proposal. You have to be excellent in everything. That's the only way to succeed. And simply because those calls have become very, very competitive, think that there are people whose job is to write these proposals. They are called external proposal writer, like myself. But you also have large companies who actually have R&D departments who have people specialized in writing these things. They know the templates, they've done it for 10 years. Some of them may have worked as reviewer for the commission for several years. They know exactly what needs to be in the proposal. So of course, you are at a disadvantage when you start writing your proposal, unless you try to seek advice. And there are really two ways to do that. Join a consortium which is led by an experienced company that has already successfully filed a proposal, and there are many of them, especially in the Nordics. I think we are quite good at this. Or get an external consultant to help you with the proposal. And keep in mind that there are often mistakes that people do. They don't focus enough on exploitation, or they forget about the innovative capability. It sounds obvious, but a good proposal is very difficult to write. It's a huge time investment. We're talking between 100 and 200 hours. And when you are an SME, you don't have that time. I mean, your time is better spent on your business. You have customer to chase and bills to pay and people to manage. You don't have 200 hours to spend on this proposal. So get external help, or if you're not the coordinator, work with a consortium where you know that the coordinator is very good and he will do all the heavy lifting for you, and you only have to contribute a little bit. Because obviously it's much easier to be a contributor than a coordinator in a proposal. The review process is very simple. There is a panel in the commission that gathers of subject experts, and these are subject experts. So that's why you shouldn't try to explain really simple things in your proposal. Really focus on innovative value, because these people know your domain, so you don't have to re-explain your domain from scratch. They will mark each of the key aspects of your proposal out of 5, and they will give you a mark which is out of 15. And this is what you get at the end. So one day you receive an email with a mark, like you were at school. At least when I was at school, I was like this. And it's very frustrating, because essentially the 200 hours you spend on this proposal, they are just summarized into 1 mark. And depending on this little number, you will get your funding or you will not get your funding. In that case, we got 12.5. And I really got worried when I got that, because it's okay, it's actually good, but it's not excellent. So we could have maybe not gotten the money. Often, especially in FP7 calls, which are very competitive, you need to reach 13, 14. I've even seen some calls where only the top proposal with 15 got funded. So it's very, very challenging. But it turns out that in that call, we were the first proposal. So they ranked they were very strict in the marks they gave, because even with 12.5, we ended up on the top of the proposals. Yeah, so if you don't have an experienced coordinator that you know of, or inside your company, try to get as much external help as possible. And really remember that this has become very, very competitive now. Everyone is trying to get that money, and it's the last call as well, so it could even mean more competition than in a normal call. Quick things on financial viability. Don't be necessarily very worried if you are, for example, not profitable. It doesn't exclude you from getting this kind of funding. It will make it difficult for you to be the coordinator, if not impossible, but you could join as a partner. There are 2 things you need to show in terms of financial viability. One is, are you profitable or not? And if not, can someone guarantee your finances? Like, for example, a shareholder or a bank. And the second one is, can you co-fund the project? Because obviously you only get 50%. So the other 50%, who will pay for that? Is it you? Is it a third party? A customer, a partner, a shareholder, and so on. If the commission judges that you're not strong enough in those 2 areas, they will not ask you to leave the consortium. They will simply ask for special guarantees. There are 3 things they can do. One is not giving you any pre-financing. That's not very good, because essentially you will end up working for a year without money on the project. But if you have the capability of doing this, then it's not a problem. You will just get paid in arrears, but a long area, which is usually 1 year. The second thing is a letter of guarantee. They will ask a bank or a third party, but that's not really a good method, because if you do a letter of guarantee with your bank for 500,000 euro, essentially it works like this. You take 500,000 euro, you put them in your bank, and you cannot touch them anymore for 1 year. So essentially it means that you need to have that 500,000 euro in your account, which you may not have. So it's not the best solution. And one thing is, because we tried that, we had a problem with one of our companies in the consortium. we thought we could guarantee some of one of our partners. So we said, you know, it's no problem with the coordinator, so we guarantee that this partner, we will cover for them. And they refused it. So you cannot guarantee each other within the consortium. It has to be a third party. The last thing they can ask, which is not good either, is joint financial liability. That means that if one partner defaults, everyone has to pay for him. And that's not good. You don't want to have that. So the best is really the no pre-financing option if you run into that situation. Be aware also that there are some subtle differences between FP7, for those of you who already have done it, and CIP. For example, there is no guarantee fund. In FP7, there is a special guarantee fund in case a partner goes bankrupt. There is no such thing in CIP. And that's also what makes it a bit more difficult to get this approval for the European Commission for the financial viability, because they know that there is no mechanism to protect someone that defaults. The limit for the audit reports is actually different for some reason. It's 325 instead of 375 euro. I don't know why, but essentially, if you receive more than this amount, then you have to submit an audit of your accounts to the European Commission when you submit the report. And also an interesting difference, VAT is normally not an eligible cost in FP7, but in CIP it can be if you cannot recover it. For example, if you travel abroad, you get some VAT on your travels, and normally you don't recover it because you don't have any VAT recovery abroad, then you can charge it to the project. Small difference. So, final recommendation, when you start working on this project, don't forget that you have to plan your cash flows, especially if you know that you will not pass the financial viability. And by the way, if you want to check, there is a spreadsheet. You just enter your numbers in there, and it will give you a sort of a ranking. And then you can guess what the Commission will tell you, because it will already simulate your financial viability. You can find that on the internet, or I can send it to you if you need. If you are financially viable, the way that the split of revenue, the split of funding is done is usually 60% pre-financing. So that's what we got. We got a nice €1 million check on the bank account just a few days ago, and then 30% maximum at the end of year 1, and then the final 10% at the end of year 2. So normally you don't have to put money up front. It's always you always get that before, except for the very last part of the project. If you are the coordinator, be aware that there is a lot of reporting, because the reporting system is exactly the same as FP7, unfortunately. So it's really heavy compared to a Eureka or Eurostar funding framework. I wish all the organization could be as efficient as Vinova, but the EC is not. Let me tell you that. So be aware there will be a lot of overhead, and you need a professional project manager to run that. And unfortunately, you will only get 50% of your cost for that part as well. In FP7, you get 100%, which is much more interesting. So you have to account also for this fact that your overhead or your reporting overhead will have to be co-funded. Which means that I don't think you should really join a project unless it's very aligned with your commercial objective. I think the CIP framework is really about building something, bringing it to market, and that has to be aligned with your objective. But don't be afraid of getting started. When I wrote this CIP proposal, it was my first proposal, CIP written from scratch, and it was successful. So of course I had some experience before from other frameworks, but first timers do get financed. It's just a matter of getting the right advice along the way. And Vinova was very supportive, as well as the European Commission. So they really try to help. Keep in mind also that they really want a lot of SMEs to benefit from this. And they understand it's very difficult for you to understand all these rules, so they're trying to help. It's not always easy to understand, but they try. And if you follow all these advices, fortunately, you will get a nice letter that I got just on my way to my vacation in June. I got the Commission invitation to negotiation. That was just before my trip to Crete, so I had a fantastic week in Crete after that. But it's a really great feeling to be able to run one of these projects. So I really, really can only recommend that you try, and you show that Sweden has great innovation to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Så, är det några frågor till Xavier?
You mentioned 60%, 30%, and then 10%.
Yep.
There is not the usual 10% that is only dispersed after you delivered your
Correct, yeah.
report.
So what happens is they give you 60% of your overall budget up front. That's normally what they do. And then they will give you the amount corresponding to your first year of effort, but to the maximum of 90%. That's why I said 30. Because on a 2-year project, you have spent at least 50%, so you will not get less than that. And so the 10% is only the very end. And you're right, it takes a lot of time to get paid, so you have to be ready for this. The pre-financing gets relatively quickly. When you conclude the negotiation, usually takes about 30 to 60 days to get the funding. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, so be a bit careful. Don't overestimate the time where you will get your money. We took the risk of starting the project before we got the money. But you may not want to do that if you are a bit unsure of how the negotiation will end up, because there's a lot of back and forth with the Commission at the negotiation phase, which I didn't talk at all about, but it's another separate topic you can ask me about. And when it comes to the funding that comes after the reporting, the Commission only has to pay within 105 days. So it could take 3 months for you to get your money if they really take the entire time. Or worse, if they don't like your reports, they can just push it and ask you for more details. And I've seen projects waiting for 6 months to get paid. That can happen. So, be a bit careful with your cash flows in that respect. But the thing you can really count on is the 60% pre-financing, because once it's in, it's in.
Jag vill bara tillägga att det är inte fallet i AAL. I AAL så är det Vinnova som sköter utbetalningarna, och vi kör vår traditionella utbetalning med jämn fördelning över 3 år, och var 6:e månad så kommer ni in med månadsrapporter, och då får man betalt efter att jag har godkänt 6 månaders rapporten.
Any further questions for Xavier? If not, I would like to thank you for sharing your experience with us, and I would thank all of you for coming, and you're most welcome to contact us now after the meeting or later on through phone and email. So thank you very much.